This is a CBS News Special Report. I'm John Dickerson. As many as 20 people are injured in a Catholic school shooting in Minneapolis. This is happening at Annunciation Church. At least 3 people are dead. One is the shooter, who died by suicide. We've been watching emotional scenes of families hugging their children as they get released and are reunited. We're now going to listen into officials who are giving a briefing.
You cannot put into words the gravity, the tragedy, or the absolute pain of this situation. We are a Minneapolis family. But to everybody out there, do not think of these as just somebody else's kids. Those families are suffering immense pain right now. Think of this as if it were your own. Every one of us needs to be wrapping our arms around these families, giving them every ounce that we can muster. These were Minneapolis families. These were American families. And the amount of pain that they are suffering right now is extraordinary. And don't just say this is about thoughts and prayers right now. These kids were literally praying. It was the first week of school. They were in a church. These are kids that should be learning with their friends. They should be playing on the playground. They should be able to go to school or church in peace without the fear or risk of violence, and their parents should have the same kind of assurance. These are the sort of basic assurances that every family should have, every step of the day, regardless of where they are in our country. I'm so deeply saddened, and I'm so sorry to the families that I know are suffering right now. My ask is to everyone, stand by them. Love them. These families have forever been changed, and we've all been changed with them. We need to do everything possible to support them through this time. We have a family resource center that has been set up. I'm grateful for all of the law enforcement agencies from a number of different jurisdictions, and all the different departmental support that we've received. They're going to be working tirelessly. There's also a family resource center that is being set up as we speak to make sure that we're there for everybody. Again, to the families that are suffering, to those that have experienced loss, I'm so deeply sorry. We're going to be with you every step of the way. We love you. This kind of act of evil should never happen, and it happens far too often. The chief will provide additional details.
My name is Brian O'Hara, B-R-I-A-N, O''H-A-R-A. I am the Minneapolis Police Chief. Earlier today, just before 8:30 a.m., our city experienced an unthinkable tragedy. Minneapolis police officers responded to a report of a shooting at a mass that was happening at the Annunciation Roman Catholic Church on the block behind me. This worship service was marking the first week of school for children that are attending the Annunciation Catholic School. During the Mass, a gunman approached on the outside, on the side of the building, and began firing a rifle through the church windows towards the children sitting in the pews at the Mass. Shooting through the windows, he struck children and worshipers that were inside the building. The shooter was armed with a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol. This was a deliberate act of violence against innocent children and other people worshiping. The sheer cruelty and cowardice of firing into a church full of children is absolutely incomprehensible. Police officers from the Minneapolis Police Department immediately responded, entered the church, and attempted to provide first aid and rescue some of the children that were hiding throughout the building. while other first responders came and EMS responded to rush victims to nearby hospitals. 2 young children, ages 8 and 10, were killed where they sat in the pews. Their parents have been notified. 17 other people were injured, 14 of them being children. 2 of those children are in critical condition. The coward who fired these shots ultimately took his own life in the rear of the church. Our hearts are broken for the families who have lost their children, for these young lives that are now fighting to recover, and for our entire community that has been so deeply traumatized by this senseless attack. We will stand together to protect our children, our schools, and our houses of worship. This deliberate act of violence is just a sign of cruelty that is beyond comprehension. Our hearts are broken for everyone that's been affected by this tragedy. As we begin the difficult path of healing, I want the community to know this, that even in the face of such evil, the Minneapolis Police Department and all of our law enforcement partners stand with our community. We stand with these families and with this parish. We will continue to be here for you. With that, the investigation is obviously in its preliminary stages, and I will attempt to take some questions to provide further information.
Chief, what can you tell us about the suspect in this case? How old was he? Any kind of motivation? Any notes or any other information that were left behind?
So we were looking, the question was what can be said about the shooter. We believe it is one suspect, a sole shooter. We believe he is deceased. He is in his early 20s, does not have an extensive known criminal history, and we are looking through information left behind to try and determine some type of motive. Yeah.
How many kids at the school? How many kids at the school?
How many children? There were, I don't have an exact, the question was how many children at the school. There were dozens of children inside the mass at the time. I don't have an exact count. The children have been relocated into the school, which is where their families are reunifying with them.
Are there no shooter other than the weapons?
Reg.
Other than the weapons, was the shooter a student, former student? Was he a former employee? Do we know that?
The question was, do we know if the shooter was a former school employee or a former student? We don't have that information.
Did he leave anything behind other than the weapons?
There's a vehicle. The question was anything left behind? There's a vehicle that we believe that the suspect used that is being searched, and we will be conducting other searches related to this.
Where was it parked?
Inside the parking lot here.
There
Yep.
was some neighbors who said that the door to the church had been barricaded.
Yep.
Is that correct?
So the question was, neighbors had said that the door to the church had been barricaded. The shooter approached on one side of the church building, and on that side, at least 2 doors, it appears there had been like a 2x4 placed. So not all of the doors around the building, but on the side where the shooter did fire.
And on the outside?
On the outside, yes.
Were there any explosives that were found?
The question was there any explosives? There were reports of that. There were no explosives or improvised devices that we found. I do believe there was one, I guess you would call it a smoke bomb, like not an explosive, but a sort of a firework that would release smoke.
And which side of the building? North, south?
The side that is closest to us, here, on this side. Yep.
Any reason why it related also at these nearby homes?
I don't have specific information on that I can release. The question was, is he dead from a gunshot wound? The answer is yes. We believe he took his own life in the parking lot.
Was this outside or both inside that he was shooting?
The question was he shooting outside and inside? He was absolutely shooting outside of the building on the side of the church, inside through the windows. It appears he may have gone inside, but I don't believe we've located any casings inside the building. So I'm not certain if he fired also while inside. It appears, if not all, most of the shooting happened outside the building.
Chief, is this shooting related to any other shootings that happened in the last 24 hours?
Yeah, Taylor's asking, is this related to any of the other shootings? This does not appear to be related to any other shooting in the city. The question was how many rounds. I would say it's in the dozens. We don't have an exact count. There's a sidewalk on the outside as well as a grassy area. So obviously we are going through and taking our time to process the scene.
Was he firing just one weapon, like the rifle?
The question was he firing one weapon? We believe he had fired all three. He had a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol.
Chief, was this individual licensed to conceal and carry? Did he have any?
Were the weapons, was he lawfully carrying the weapons? I don't have that information, and I don't have any information on any significant criminal history either.
Was he dressed at all in any tactical type of gear or anything?
It appeared he had some black clothing on, his cargo-type pants. I guess you could interpret that as, you know, however you like.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for helping us to get the information out today. We have a lot more work
questions?
that needs to be done. We will return back later today to provide more details as they become available, and we'll let you know how you can know about that in the moments to come. Thank you.
Okay.
How can the public help?
That's it. Thank you.
What we have just witnessed is a briefing by the police chief, Brian O'Hara, who has updated us on the shooting at Annunciation Church in Minneapolis. He tells us that 2 children, ages 8 and 10, have been killed while they sat in the pews, according to the chief, during Mass. This is a Mass that started at 8:15. It does every Wednesday for this school during the school year. 17 were injured, 14 of them children, 2 of them critical. The shooter, according to the police chief, was in his early 20s. No association with the school that they know yet, was dressed in black clothing. The majority of the gunfire came from the outside through into the sanctuary windows, and the shooter took his own life. Let's turn now to CBS News Homeland Security correspondent Nicole Skanga. Nicole, what are you hearing, and what is your reaction to what you heard in that briefing there from the police chief?
John, a few key details from police, including that the shooter had fired off dozens of rounds from 3 different weapons. A rifle, we know from law enforcement sources, that is a semi-automatic weapon, in addition to a shotgun and a pistol. The majority of those shot outside, and this suspect approaching from the side of the church, firing through stained glass windows, aiming directly at students who were kneeling in the pews praying at the time of this incident. In addition to that, we know that authorities right now are searching the gunman's vehicle that was parked in the parking lot. Initially, we had heard reports of a possible improvised explosive device. At this point in time, law enforcement have not found that. They did find what they called a firework, a smoke bomb in the car, but no significant criminal history for this individual. Police say they are searching some information that was left behind by the shooter, possibly going through electronics. We know that the FBI is on the scene and completing a forensic scrub of this individual. Police also say that the gunman was standing in the rear of the church when he took that self-inflicted gun wound, ending his life, and that law enforcement were on the scene within minutes, John, and that they immediately rendered first aid to students there on the ground. Of course, you mentioned that there are 17 injured now, including 14 that are children and 2 that are in critical condition there. But just horrific to hear the police chief there, Brian O'Hara, describe how police not only rendered first aid, but had to go find students who were hiding within the church, scared at what had just unfolded.
Nicole Skanga, thank you. Let's go now to CBS News reporter Nydia Cavazos, who is at the scene. Nydia, what do you see there?
John, the first words out of that press conference were "children are dead," and those words perfectly well describe what this scene is like at this moment. It is a very difficult scene. We are just outside of Annunciation Catholic School. We are surrounded by a very, very heavy presence of police officers, state troopers from Minneapolis. The FBI is here. We just witnessed multiple K-9 units going in. Many tactical vehicles are also going through this road heading up to the school. Now, when we were arriving, when our crew was making our way here, we were hearing sirens of officers coming in, helicopters around the area, and just to give you a sense of what we were hearing. But as we were walking over here, given that the roads were closed, we were also witnessing how parents were carrying their children. The children had their arms, their tiny arms wrapped around their parents and still in their Catholic school uniform. Now, we are currently witnessing as well some of the police officers and FBI agents who are going door to door knocking on some of these nearby homes. We did have a chance to ask the police chief about this, but there are no details on that. And of course, we will continue to inquire about this. Back to you.
Nydia Cavazos, thank you. Yes, those forest green shirts that the students wear, that's why you'll see any of the students wearing those shirts. That's the school uniform. Justice Correspondent Scott McFarland joins us now. Scott, the federal officials have been briefed across all of the various different departments. What are you hearing? What do you observe?
The FBI, the Minneapolis field officer there, helping lead this investigation, obviously in conjunction with the Minneapolis police chief, from whom we just heard. The Minneapolis police chief, Brian O'Hara, who spoke there, he was brought into Minnesota after George Floyd's murder to rejuvenate that police department and to build outreach to religious institutions. I've met with him many times. He has done visits to churches to try to ingratiate himself with the community. This is the type of place he has been before. The kids at this school, these are 3 to 13-year-olds. The 2 children killed, 8 years old and 10 years old, 14 other children wounded at a mass that was known through the community. This was the back to school mass at Annunciation Church on the 3rd day. And as so many parents across the country know, this is the week when your kids go back to school. You're posting the photos on Facebook with the new backpacks, the new school uniforms. It's a time of joy. And Mayor Fry there, Mayor Jacob Fry, who is finishing his 2nd term this year, said, don't just say thoughts and prayers. These kids were literally praying. Some of the questions I'll note from that news conference, they echo the same questions Nicole and I have been asking our sources this morning. Is there a connection between this shooter and the school or the church or the community? That question was not answered. Do we know if those firearms were legally owned? Chief didn't have that information either. Here's what we know from sources who have investigated school shootings or shootings in religious institutions in the past. Oftentimes, almost all the time, those guns were legally obtained or stolen from a family member, and often there is some connective tissue between either the suspect and the people at the building, the school, or the suspect and the religion, that this could have a motivation that ties either to that school or to that faith. That's the pattern that the Secret Service and FBI have found in frequent investigations of mass shootings. But that information was not answered by the Minneapolis police chief, John, obviously, nor was a name given.
Scott McFarland, thank you. Just for those who don't have kids, an 8-year-old, which is the age of one of the victims, you're learning multiplication tables. At 10 years old, the age of another victim, you're learning fractions, decimals. These are students that are in the basic stages of learning, and this is and now what has come to into their lives. We're joined now by Tim Gallagher. He's a former FBI official. Tim, your thoughts?
Yes, thanks for having me on here. Absolutely horrific scene in Minneapolis. Having sent my children to Catholic school for 12 years, they were in those same pews years ago, and it's just heartbreaking to see this play out.
Tim, I was just thinking there, students now beginning the school year, as Scott McFarland mentioned, there's so much a sense of optimism, of chapters beginning, the hope that comes with both on the beginning of the school year and a morning mass. But it is a regular part of school teaching to prepare students for this. Even though kids may not be able to read chapter books yet, they have to prepare. What kind of training would students be given to prepare for this kind of eventuality?
Yeah, sadly, it is part of the training that children receive in their schooling and in houses of worship, and it's absolutely necessary. Actually, preventing an active shooter is extremely difficult, but you can mitigate the actual lost a human life, through training and making sure that every child, has a plan of what they will do if something like this were to happen. And it's critical that it's delivered not with a you could be next attitude where it could, to frighten the children, but just so that, okay, if something bad happens like this, here's what you're going to do. And you saw that some of the children were hiding. I'm sure that was part of the training. That's like you want to hide yourself away from the scene, run as fast as you can. That's going to be part of it. And it's, as well as basic first aid. That's going to be part of the training as well. Just to prevent loss of life post gunshot.
And Tim, what kind of questions would you be anxious to get the answers to? Having worked at the FBI, had association with these kinds of cases, what's on your mind in terms of questions you'd want answered?
Well, sure. You're looking to see, what the association is, with this institution. And you saw the chief said that they did not know, and fully 1/3 of active shooter cases, there's no association. It's just a crime of opportunity. But we want to know, this is a 20-year-old. What brought him here on this day, and who else may have known? There would have been some leakage, as we say in the industry, where they started to hint to people that they were getting ready to do something. They can go through all of his electronic devices, things that he posted, things that he may have sent to himself that are, resident on his devices, whether it's his laptop or his phone. And they're going to be careful doing this. We heard about potential, there was smoke bombs, but you're always looking to see where there's a secondary device. This stuff would be trapped out there, whether it's a car, whether it's an apartment, whether it's his bedroom. These are all things that law enforcement will meticulously look to ensure that there's no further threat. And then they'll be looking to see who knew what. Was anyone possibly tipped off, and then drilling down on the motive, what drew him here on this day.
All right. Tim Gallagher, thank you so much. Joining us now is CBS News national security contributor Samantha Vinograd. Sam, I understand you have experience with Minneapolis when you were at the Department of Homeland Security.
John, that's right. I traveled to Minneapolis to work with members of state and local law enforcement, members of the community on preventing acts of targeted violence and terrorism. And to Tim's point, from a prevention standpoint, federal officials work very closely with their partners and communities to ensure that every faith-based institution, as well as every school, has a bespoke, customized plan to try to mitigate damage if there is an active shooter situation. And those plans have to be carefully designed for the specific environment, in this case, the church. It looks like that plan did help mitigate some damage today. Law enforcement arrived quickly. However, the active shooter was able to get up to a window after entering the parking lot. So there will certainly, I imagine, be an assessment of whether extending the perimeter from this faith-based institution would have helped mitigate some of the damage. From a prevention standpoint as well, in these situations, oftentimes we have what we call lone wolves, individuals who radicalize and mobilize to violence on their own. That's why part of the work that I did in Minneapolis and around the country through the Department of Homeland Security was to try to encourage members of communities to ask for help if they saw an individual exhibiting potentially worrisome behavior, making threats, stockpiling weapons, and that sort of thing. Unfortunately, these lone wolves are incredibly hard to detect in advance of a mass casualty event, and that's why every member of the community is entirely helpful in terms of alerting law enforcement and other responsible individuals in a community if they see an individual radicalizing, mobilizing to violence, especially, John, after a mass casualty event like this. There's always a concern about copycat incidents and individuals who might be motivated to act after seeing this kind of high-profile mass casualty event.
That's a really interesting point. Training, and not only that institutions have to go through and be prepared for as a part of American life, but even the wider community. Thank you so much for that, Sam. Just to update everyone, 2 children are dead. 17 other people are injured after a gunman fired into Annunciation Roman Catholic Church in Minneapolis during a mass that was marking the first week of school, which started on Monday. Our coverage will continue on CBS News 24/7, your local news, and tonight on the CBS Evening News. This has been a CBS News Special Report. I'm John Dickerson.